A deal on Dickens, who could resist? A stack of Austen, warmly kissed. Golden Age crime tales twist and turn, every page a treasure to learn. Books keep coming home with me, piles so tall they're all I see. Turn a page and sail the sea, reading always feels so free.
Hi, my name is Talia. Welcome to Talia Nerds Out. Just another update on the Cozy with the Detection Club, where I'm at with that, and for Christie's Missing. I did not read as much for Christie's Missing as I normally do. They were a little bit more laid back this year, which worked out for me. I think with doing a Myrtle puzzle a day, I've kind of had to struggle to, keep up. Normally, I'd be knocking out Christie book after Christie book after Christie book during the Christie's Missing Readathon, but I think that the Myrtle a day kind of slowed me down a bit. But so far, I have solved the Myrtle of each day, which is kind of cool. They're getting progressively harder, though. But anyway, books that I have read for the Readathon thus far, I think all of these are ones that I haven't talked about yet. So, for Christie's Missing particularly, I read Midwinter Murder, this beautiful copy here. And a lot of the stories, I think the Manhood of Edward Robinson was a new one to me. So I did enjoy, actually several of these were newer. Let's see, and if it was Poirot, I knew it for the most part. But I'm pretty sure the Coming of Mr. Quinn was new to me. I was familiar with Chocolate Box. Actually, some of these became expanded versions. Like the Plymouth Express eventually takes on the feeling, I think eventually becomes the Blue Train. Either it's the Mystery of the Blue Train. It's also, hold on, let me bring this up. My handy dandy. It's either called The Mystery of the Blue Train or It's Evil Sun. Yeah, The Mystery of the Blue Train. But the short story in here, The Plymouth Express, you can see where she was kind of building that story in her head eventually. There's a couple of stories in here that if you're familiar with Christie's body of work, you can go, oh, okay, either A, that was in a different collection as well, like the Chocolate Box, I think that's also in Poirot Investigates, and maybe even in Poirot's Early Cases, which is another collection I have up there. That gets included in a lot of different short story collections. But so a lot of the other ones here, you have at least two Mr. Quinn stories. I know that there's one Parker Pine in here, at least. The Manhood of Edward Robinson is a completely standalone one. And then there's the Christmas Adventure, which is interesting insofar as it's kind of like the Plymouth Express, insofar as it eventually becomes something else. And first of all, the Christmas Adventure, it's the last story in here. It's about 18 pages long. It is the precursor to The Adventure of the Christmas Pudding, which is a novella, I guess. It's 54 pages. I love The Adventure of the Christmas Pudding, another beautiful book of short stories. Actually, I might need to read this one, because usually I read this one most years as well. But, yeah, it's expanding upon what you find in the Christmas Adventure. Now, because it is the expanded version, I do think that it's better than the original. Christie's strengths come in her doing a longer form of writing, because it allows her to mystify more, to reveal more slowly through conversation, it allows her to, confuse people with false leads, or to just provide information without you realizing you're providing information that's important. But the shorter the story, the less room Christie has to work her magic and to perform her craft. So almost by default, The Adventure of the Christmas Pudding was going to be better than its precursor, which was so much shorter. But for the most part, this is a nice little collection of short stories, some of which I've only maybe read once, others of which I haven't read at all. So I need to find and see usually where my gaps are in Christie's reading. I think there might be a couple books that I'm missing that I haven't read. I think Endless Night is one of them. But for the most part, if I have gaps in my reading for Christie, it's because it is a short story that maybe I haven't found that collection yet. Because I don't read her short stories as often, simply because I don't like them as much as I do her full-on works. But I will end up reading this, I think, this year, as I normally do. But going into some of the ideas that I just mentioned about Christie's strengths, that's where this book here, The Gentle Art of Murder, came in. And I really enjoyed this book. I didn't always agree with the points that the author made about Christie's work. For the most part, I did. Like when he talks about themes for Christie, where Christie talks about her mysteries being basically a morality play. And she talks about how about her themes of the protection of the innocents, that it's about protecting the innocent not only from the murderer themselves, but from the weight of wondering, what did that person I care for do this thing? Does my coffee taste a bit sour because I'm being poisoned? As well as protecting the innocents from the burden of being suspected of something that they didn't do. And this is most well covered. A lot of his works cover this. A lot of her works cover this, such as Hercule Poirot's Christmas, also known as have it upside down, A Holiday for Murder. One of my favorite books. I've mentioned before, this is my first ever Christie book, even though it wasn't this copy. I read my first Christie in a paperback as Hercule Poirot's Christmas. But this collection's beautiful, so I wanted this one when I had to replace my copy. But this one covers that theme as well. I mean, because he asks someone in here that, are you, or actually, I think she says that, here's the quote I was looking for, and this does highlight something Christie covers in multiple books. Sometimes she mentions it outright, sometimes it's implied. So this is Poirot talking to Lydia, one of the characters. Let us be more frank. What I ask you is this. Do you want the truth to come out or not? Naturally. Poirot sighed. Must you return me these conventional replies? Lydia said, I am a conventional woman. Then she bit her lip, hesitated, and said, Perhaps it's better to speak frankly. Of course I understand you. The position is not a pleasant one. My father-in-law has been brutally murdered, and unless a case can be made out against the most likely suspect, and it seems that it cannot, then it comes to this. One of his own family killed him. To bring that person to justice will mean bringing shame and disgrace on us all. If I am to speak honestly, I must say that I do not want this to happen. Poirot said, You are content for the murderer to escape unpunished? There are probably several undiscovered murderers at large in the world. That I grant you. Does one more matter then? Poirot said, And what about the other members of the family, the innocent? She stared. What about them? Do you realize that if it turns out as you hope, no one will ever know? The shadow will remain on all alike. She said uncertainly, I hadn't thought of that. Poirot said, No one will ever know who the guilty person is. So, that's one of the times where he says it outright, but she has a whole where Poirot says it outright, or Christie through Poirot rather. But like I said, there's been several books. Poirot multiple times has mentioned this, but a really excellent book that I don't think gets its due as much as it should is Ordeal by Innocence, where that is literally the theme of the stated outright theme of the book. You have someone come home who realized that because he had been gone during this period of time and he lost his memory of a certain incident, before he left. And like I said, he was gone for ages, and then he comes back to England and realized that he has an alibi for someone who was convicted of murder. And now everyone who was thought to be innocent prior to that point is now having to feel the weight of not only suspicion on themselves, but suspicion towards everyone around them, and wondering, did that person do it? And now they feel like they can't move on with their lives. So this is a theme that Christie covers a lot. Like I said, it gets mentioned in Hercule Poirot's Christmas, which I reread every year, and I did reread this year. Highly recommend. But also Ordeal by Innocence. I know there's other books that can immediately come to mind because it is a theme that she finds very compelling, which is mentioned in... Sorry, my alarm went off. The author mentions here that Christie's conservatism is something that actually serves to help towards making her more popular. Part of it is because there's something comforting in the good winning in the end, in the fact that, the murderer will be caught. And because it's not a graphic story, it's very much of a psychological examination of why someone would be murdered. It ends up making it less... You don't feel the same immediacy of the danger, so you're able to work on it like a game against the author. Even though Poirot would say murder is not a game to Hastings in multiple books. But yeah, this is a good examination of her work. Like I said, I don't agree with all the points he makes. I think he doesn't necessarily give Christie enough credit for her characterizations. I did think it was interesting that he mentions that her conservatism not only makes it so, because she doesn't really have a bunch of wild things that she says, it makes it so a lot of cultures are able to kind of impress their own ideas upon her work, like can kind of imagine more easily her England in the way that they would imagine England would look like, because she doesn't provide a ton of wild things, like express a lot of wild views, or put on the reader need to have certain knowledge. She describes herself as writing simple tales about people. And what's interesting, he actually compared her more to Austen, which I thought was interesting, because I've been watching Dr. Octavia Cox's Advent Calendar on Austen, where Austen never considered herself a romance writer, serious romance writer. She considered herself, I think, more of a comedian. Not like comedian like we might think of it. She was writing comedies, satirical examinations of the world around her. And that's one of the things that this author mentions about Christie, is that... I'm trying to find the quote. Oh, here we go. Her dislike of messy deaths and her refusal to present the details of them is a principal reason for her reputation for coziness. The elimination of overt violence and the inevitable solution of the plot complications bring Christie's works into the broader genre of comedy. If Christie is cozy, she is cozy as Jane Austen is. Which I thought was very interesting, because these are two authors I like a lot. I wouldn't have thought to connect them in that way, but Christie's humor is something that is throughout her work. And I do think it's something that doesn't necessarily get noted as much as it could be. Not because Poirot gets necessarily... I mean, he is a ridiculous little man, but he's not a clown. He uses what makes him seem ridiculous. He exaggerates it. Yes, some of his stuff is actually just his egoism, and some of his quirks are a bit ridiculous, but some of it he plays up because it's convenient to him in solving the mystery. to appear less threatening. But I thought that was interesting. The fact that they mentioned that you could almost use Christie's work as a way to examine here it is. Christie provides a social history of England from World War I to the 1970s, because she stays pretty, constant. She's pretty conservative, but she's charting through her characters, like, because Poirot was from basically the beginning all the way to Curtin, which, although Curtin wasn't written I don't think it was actually written in the 1970s. It was released right before her death, Curtin. Let's check the Book of All Knowledge regarding Christie. Okay. So, it was released in 1975. So, it's, Christie is able to chart through her characters the changes of the time, because it shows through her writing, but not because the narrative voice changed. She's still seeing it as a very conservative woman, but you see the changes in the world around her. So her basic conservatism is another plus as a social historian. As her views do not fundamentally change, she does not fluctuate with the current faddish ideas. She has nostalgia for the past, as everyone does, but she is also amused by her own nostalgia and realizes that change, however unpleasant, is a fact of life and inevitable. There's a lot of interesting points in here. Like I said, I didn't necessarily agree with everything the author said about Christie's work. Sometimes I felt that he didn't give her enough credit, or some of the works that he kind of, not sneered at, but kind of declared as lesser works, I considered to be her better works. Whereas I've never cared for Easy Kill / Murder is Easy. I might need to give another read. I just don't like the main character for that. But he thought very well of that book, so I'll give it another chance. It doesn't help that they market it as a Superintendent Battle book, and he only shows up in the last several pages, and not even in a terribly meaningful way. I felt cheated. But this is a good examination of Christie's work, but I would not recommend you read it unless you're highly familiar with her body of work, because there are spoilers in here. So this is definitely for the Christie super fan, and for someone who is interested in literary criticism. It gave me an opportunity to see Christie's works in a new light, and I'll probably be looking for certain concepts that he mentioned for Christie with future rereads of her work. See if I can pick out some of the points that he made. So yes, I did enjoy this. Next that I read, and so I mentioned already, The Holiday for Murder, or Carol Poirot's Christmas. Those were the ones that were for Christie's Missing and for Cozy Detection Club. These were purely Cozy Detection Club. So first was Murder by the Book, Mysteries for Bibliophiles. This is a mixture of Detection Club authors and other Golden Age mystery authors. So the Detection Club ones that were in here, you had a short story by GDH and M. Cole, by E.C. Bentley, Nicholas Blake. You had one by A.A. Milne, Julian Simmons, Gladys Mitchell, Roy Vickers, Michael Innes, and Christiana Brand. Edmund Crispin and Nagio Marsh. I can never say the name right. The one I particularly enjoyed actually was, I think it was not actually Detection Club one. It was, I believe that's Book of Honor 221. This was an interest. Some stories I thought were better than others, as is going to happen with a short story collection, particularly when you have multiple authors in there. No, it wasn't this one. Let's see. Oh, no, here it is. Yeah, Book of Honor. Is this? Yeah, I really enjoyed the Book of Honor by John Christie. Not a Detection Club author, but I might have to look into more of his work. Christiana Brands is always clever. Yeah, no, there's some really good stories in here. Now, what made it bibliomysteries, because I have several bibliomystery collections. And these are ones that are somehow focused on books. So a book is a big part of the mystery. Either the person involved is a writer, or the book is somehow part of the murder, or something like that. So the British Library Crime Classics has several bibliomysteries. There's this one. There's one that I read, The Death of Mr. Dodsley, toward the beginning of the year. Maybe it was more, it was during March Mystery Madness. That's another bibliomystery. So there's several bibliomysteries within the British Library Crime Classic Catalog. I think I have all of them, so I do intend to make my way through it. But this was an enjoyable short story collection. It was a good way to get started with the Detection Club, Cozy Detection Club Readathon, because the short stories, you know, kind of keep you going. I think I pretty much start with one. I'm pretty sure. Sorry, another alarm. I'm gonna have to get off pretty soon. I think this is one of the ones I started off early, reading concurrently with other books. And then I did finish 2 other Georgette Hayers. Let's see. I did have some notes about these. I rated this one, Death in the Stocks, higher than I did Behold, Here's Poison. I think this is the one I rated highest. And I actually might mention this in another video. This is the first of the Hannah-side mysteries, Death in the Stocks. And I'm wondering if this is going to be a feature of the Hannah-side mysteries, where Hannah-side is present and working on the mystery, but he's not really the one who solves it. And this is the same thing that happens later in Behold, Here's Poison. So I don't know if the detective is kind of just there as a official backdrop, but the other characters are always going to end up solving the mysteries, or if it's just the first 2 happen to be like that. Some of the characters could be a bit rude, but I actually really did enjoy the characters in this one, which is not always the case I've noticed with Georgette Hayers' books. Her characters are always very well drawn, but they aren't always likable characters. And I don't mean they're not likable insofar as you don't want to continue the reading the book. They're very well drawn, and you do want to continue reading the book. They're interesting, but they aren't necessarily likable as people. They're, you know, either rude, or they're, you know, they're kind of nasty or something like that. And by nasty, I mean like they are selfish or something like that. And this was a big thing in Behold, Here's Poison. I think there was only like one character that I connected to, and she, for the most part, was kind of your point of view character. But yeah, I love the person in here who's kind of like the assistant to the detective in this one. His name is Giles. He's a lawyer. So I really enjoyed his character, and he shows up briefly in this one. So I'm kind of hoping he'll end up being a reoccurring character in the Hannah-side mysteries, even if we only see him briefly. So I would definitely recommend Death in the Stocks. I didn't enjoy Behold, Here's Poison as much, although it is still good. I gave this as 3 stars to the 5 stars I gave Death in the Stocks. It is the second of the Superintendent Hannah-side books. I will read the next one at some point. The detective is a bit more active than he was, I think, in the other one. Although, like I said, he was always in the background for Death in the Stocks. The romance in here I found a bit unsatisfying, but there were people who actually, I read this with a bunch of people on Goodreads. They chose this as the book of that particular month. I can't remember which month I read this. I think this might have been November. And they chose this book for that month. And a lot of people did enjoy that, the romantic lead, but I didn't particularly care for that character, and I felt like the romance is kind of maybe not her best romance, but I haven't read a bunch of her romances, and maybe it's just because I didn't care for that character that was involved in the romance that I found it unsatisfying. and I found the solution to the story to be a bit unsatisfying as well. So this was a good enough mystery. I enjoyed it. I would recommend it, but I definitely didn't like it as much as I did Death in the Stalks. But all these characters, as usual, Georgia Hare is quite gifted at drawing her characters, even if I don't always like them. It keeps me reading, and the feel of these books, they're just excellent. They feel very nice in the hand, and they're easy to read, which is definitely a plus when, you want to knock out a few books. I think that's it for the ones that I've read for Detection Club so far, at least the ones I haven't talked about. I think I will end up starting soon The Adventure of the Christmas Pudding, the whole collection. Now, this one isn't Detection Club. I am going to be starting this, I think, soon. The Crime of a Christmas Toy. This is another British Library crime classic, but not a Detection Club, so this can't be counted for Cozy with the Detection Club. I'm still reading Father Ronald Knox's biography by Evelyn Waugh, which does count for Cozy with the Detection Club. So I need to get back to this now that Christie's Missing is over. But yeah, I think that's it for... Sorry, I'm just trying to put this down because I knocked something over. I think that's it for this video. I feel like it's going to be a little bit disjointed. Hopefully, post-production, I can make it a little bit more coherent. I just got interrupted several times. So anyway, thank you very much. I hope that you have a very blessed day. Oh, actually, hold on. I did mean to show another one of the... I had a short story collection. Oh, here it is. This one also is another one of the ones that has Detection Club members in here, the Christmas Card Crime. It starts right off with the Baroness Orczy, which I've never read any of her mystery, so I might have to start this one sooner rather than later. So another one of the British Library Crime Classic short story collections that has several Detection Club members in it, and it's Christmas, so might have to start this one sooner rather than later as well. Okay, now I'm really closing. Thank you very much for joining me. Sorry this video is so disjointed. I think I feel a bit of a headache coming on, and I also am running short on time. I had to go and live stream Liturgy Hours again. So anyway, have a very blessed day. I will see you the next time. Bye.
Books keep coming home with me. Piles so tall, they're all I see. Turn a page and sail the sea. Reading always feels so free.